It started as a dare. A stupid, reckless idea that seemed perfect for an 18-year-old trying to prove something. Halloween was fast approaching, and my friends and I thought it would be fun to spend the night at the abandoned hunting cabin deep in the woods. The place had a reputation. Stories of disappearances, ghostly sightings, and things that didn't quite add up. It wasn't like we believed any of it, though that's what we kept telling ourselves. Anyway, when we got there, the air was thick with a foul stench that clung to everything. At first, we joked about it being a dead animal nearby. Probably a raccoon or something. Jake said, waving his hand in front of his nose. Lisa grimaced but didn't say much. She had always been the quiet one in the group. Sarah, on the other hand, tried to lighten the mood with sarcastic remarks. The cabin itself looked like it could collapse at any moment. Weathered wood missing shingles, and a door hanging crookedly on its hinges. Inside, it wasn't much better. The furniture was rotting, and the walls were covered with strange carvings, symbols I didn't recognize. There were hunting trophies mounted everywhere. Deer heads with cracked antlers, a bear that looked more like a moldy rug, and others. I couldn't shake the feeling that their glass eyes were following us. "This place is disgusting," Sarah muttered, kicking a broken chair aside. But we were here, and there was no way I was going to back out. Not after convincing everyone to come. As the evening wore on, the smell didn't go away. It got worse. By the time we set up the lanterns and cracked open a few drinks, we were all feeling uneasy. Lisa kept looking toward the basement door. "Do you guys hear that?" she asked after a while. We didn't at first, but then I caught it too, a faint whispering sound, just on the edge of hearing. "It's probably just the wind," Jake said, though his voice lacked conviction. The weirdness escalated quickly. Our flashlights, fully charged when we arrived, started flickering. By the time it was dark outside, they were dead. Only the lantern provided light, casting long, flickering shadows on the walls. That's when Lisa pointed it out. Scratches on the walls like claw marks. Some were shallow, others deep enough to gouge the wood. "This isn't funny," Sarah snapped, glaring at me as if it were somehow my fault. "Nobody's laughing," I shot back, but my bravado was starting to crack. I felt it too. The oppressive atmosphere, the sense that we weren't alone. The whispers grew louder. Lisa was the first to notice the bag. It was stuffed into a corner near the basement door, partially hidden behind an overturned cabinet. At first, I thought it was just an old sack, the kind hunters might use for supplies. But it was moving, pulsating, almost like it was alive. "What the hell is that?" Jake asked, stepping back. "Don't touch it," Lisa said sharply, her voice trembling. But of course, curiosity got the better of me. I reached out and pulled the bag open. I wish I hadn't. Inside was a creature I can only describe as a nightmare come to life. Its body was twisted, a grotesque blend of human and animal. Antlers jutted from its skull, and its skin, if you could call it that, looked like a patchwork of flesh and fur. Its eyes snapped open, glowing faintly in the dim light. "You shouldn't have done that," it rasped. Its voice was more a feeling than a sound, reverberating through my chest and freezing me in place. The thing stood up, towering over us, its limbs jerking unnaturally. The room erupted into chaos. Jake grabbed a broken piece of wood and swung at it, but the creature barely flinched. Lisa screamed, the sound piercing and raw, while Sarah and I backed toward the door. "Run!" I shouted, but it was too late. The creature moved with impossible speed, its antlers slashing through the air. One by one, my friends were taken. Jake's shout turned into a gurgle, and Sarah. I couldn't even see what happened to her. Lisa's scream was the last thing I heard before I bolted into the woods. The forest was a maze of shadows and noise. I ran until my lungs burned, but no matter how far I went, I couldn't escape the feeling that something was following me. When I finally stopped, doubled over and gasping for air, I realized I was back at the cabin. The creature was waiting for me. They tried to control the spirit of the forest, it said, its voice reverberating through the trees. "Now you will take their place." Before I could react, it lunged. I braced for the end, but instead, I felt nothing. When I opened my eyes, the creature was gone. My friends were gone. The cabin was silent, the stench lingering like a cruel reminder. Now, I'm here writing this. I don't know how long I've been in this cursed place. Days? Weeks? Time doesn't feel real anymore. The whispers never stop, and I've started to understand them. They tell me I'm the guardian now. My job is to keep others from making the same mistake. If you're reading this, leave. Don't come looking for me. Don't come to the cabin. Because if you do, I won't let you leave. The Lake Beast. I've always loved autumn. There's something so achingly beautiful about the season. The way the trees set themselves ablaze in fiery reds and oranges before shedding their leaves. This year, I decided to rent a remote lakeside cabin for a week-long photography retreat. The idea was to capture the splendor of fall in its most unspoiled form, the deep woods, the glassy surface of the lake, the mist that clings to mornings like a veil. The cabin was perfect for solitude, but close enough to a small town that I could get supplies, or, if I felt particularly generous, hand out candy to the occasional local kids who ventured out by kayak. The cabin was old but cozy, with a wood-burning stove and a dock that stretched out into the lake like an invitation. I spent the first few days in a state of bliss, my camera clicking as I wandered the shoreline and nearby trails. Nights were quiet. The only sounds the occasional hoot of an owl or the soft lapping of water against the dock. I'd never felt so at peace. Then Halloween night arrived. I bought a small bag of candy, mostly out of habit, and left it in a bowl by the door, just in case. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the lake in hues of molten gold, I settled into an armchair with a book. It was well past dark when I heard it, a splash, sharp and sudden, from the direction of the dock. I froze, my heart stuttering. A raccoon, I told myself, or maybe a deer wading into the shallows. But curiosity won out, as it always does. Grabbing a flashlight, I stepped outside. The cold air bit at my cheeks as I made my way down to the dock, the beam of light cutting through the darkness. The lake's surface rippled slightly as if disturbed, but there was nothing there. Nothing, that is, except a child's kayak, bobbing gently against the dock. I frowned. The kayak was empty. No paddle, no sign of its owner. "Hello," I called out, my voice sounding small against the vastness of the lake. Silence answered me. I waited a moment longer, then shrugged it off. Probably a prank, I decided, though the idea left an uneasy knot in my stomach. I pushed the kayak away from the dock and returned to the cabin, locking the door behind me. The next night, the splashes returned, louder this time. I ignored them at first, convincing myself it was just the wind stirring the water. But then I saw it, a shadowy figure floating on the lake. My breath caught. It was far out, barely more than a silhouette against the dark water, but unmistakably human-shaped. I watched, rooted to the spot, as it drifted closer. My flashlight trembled in my hand as I raised it, the beam landing on the figure. It was a child, or at least it resembled one. Its face was a grotesque mask of decay, flesh sloughing off to reveal something black and glistening beneath. Hollow eyes stared at me, unblinking. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. The figure opened its mouth and a garbled, watery voice rasped out, "Trick or treat." I didn't think. I turned and ran, my heart hammering. When I reached the cabin, I slammed the door shut and locked it, pressing my back against the wood, as if that could keep the thing out. My pulse roared in my ears, drowning out everything else. It wasn't real, I told myself. It couldn't be real. The next morning, I ventured outside, half convinced I'd dreamed the whole thing. But there, leading from the dock to my cabin, were wet footprints. Small, child-sized footprints. My stomach churned. I tried calling the local ranger station, but the spotty cell service made it impossible to get through. Instead, I spent the day researching, combing through local legends and records. What I found chilled me to the bone. The lake had a history. Over the years, there have been reports of missing persons, strange sightings, and whispers of something ancient dwelling in its depths. One story in particular stood out. A creature that mimicked human voices to lure its victims, dragging them down into the water to join it. Most dismissed it as folklore, But now I wasn't so sure. That night, I heard it again. Trick or treat. The voice came from just outside the cabin. My blood ran cold. I peeked out the window and saw it standing in the backyard, its grotesque face illuminated by the pale moonlight. It tilted its head, as if listening. Trick or treat. It rasped again, more insistent this time. I retreated from the window, heart pounding. Desperation clawed at me. I needed help. I managed to reach the ranger on my radio, explaining in frantic whispers what had been happening. He promised to come by and check things out. Relief flooded me, though it was short-lived. When the ranger arrived, I heard his truck pull up and his boots crunch on the gravel. Then came the splash. And silence. Morning came, and the ranger was gone. His truck was still there, keys in the ignition, but no sign of him. Wet footprints led from the shoreline to the cabin's porch, where they stopped. My hands shook as I packed my things. I needed to leave, to get as far away from this place as possible. But as I loaded my gear into the car, the kayak floated back to the dock, as if waiting for me. I should have left. I should have driven off without looking back. But something about that kayak, its eerie stillness, the way it seemed to beckon, drew me in. I stepped onto the dock, my breath fogging in the cold air. The lake was impossibly calm, its surface like glass. I climbed into the kayak, gripping the paddle with trembling hands. As I pushed off, the world seemed to hold its breath. The water closed around me, dark and silent. I paddled toward the far shore, each stroke taking me farther from the cabin. Dawn was breaking, the first rays of light piercing the horizon. For a moment, I dared to hope. Then it came. A hand, slick and cold, shot out of the water and clamped around my ankle. I screamed, thrashing, but it was no use. The kayak tipped, and I plunged into freezing depths. The last thing I saw was the creature's face, grinning as it pulled me under. The lake swallowed me whole.